Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Investment Talk. I'm your host, Brandyn Armstrong, and today we have a fantastic guest joining us. He's had a remarkable journey moving from successful corporate career in manufacturing to becoming a thriving entrepreneur in the world of laundromats and car washes. Please give a warm welcome to Jon Schemmel.
Right after the intro.
Hey, what you got going on, man?
Yo, Nick, pass, make it slack.
Jon.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brandon.
Oh, no problem, man. Thanks a lot. I'm thrilled to be here and share your experiences with my audience, man. Let's dive right in. Can you tell us a little bit about your transition from corporate manufacturing to owning laundromats and car washes?
Yeah,
How did you make the change?
there's headaches on both sides. No, I spent over a decade in corporate manufacturing, had a great career, got to live all over the world, managed businesses in South America, North America, and learned a lot. Was an engineer out of school, but I wanted to take those experiences when my wife and I moved to South Dakota and try our hand at our own thing. I grew up in the laundromat business. My dad had, my uncle had, they were a Maytag distributor. They had a bunch of laundromats. Grew up collecting quarters, and obviously knew there was some profit in the business. And for 5 years or so, had my eye out on buying some. So my brother-in-law and I kind of started our own company, started in multifamily, and then we in September 2020 bought our first. It was actually a laundromat and a car wash together when we both had jobs, and I was kind of the primary operating partner. And fast forward to today, we're sitting on 7 laundromats, and a couple other commercial real estate properties. So.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's pretty impressive, man. I'm sure it was quite a shift going through the whole journey. What were some of the challenges you faced during the transition, and how did you overcome them?
I think in corporate, particularly nowadays, it's everybody complains about managing an inbox, with 500 emails and stuff.
Yeah.
You go to your own gig, and emails aren't the problem, but the midnight phone call when your water line breaks and the alarm goes off, that's the problem.
Right.
So just honestly, acquiring somebody else's business, everybody has their own style of running and managing. Most, I would say, I don't want to put a percentage on it, but many legacy owner operators operate it, not more like a hobby, but generally they do everything in the business.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a set amount of time with the goal of really, I only wanted to do anything in the business that was our core business. So I really learned that corporate of, if you focus on the core and you learn to scale, you can create a real business, and generally that's profitable. So I've kind of, as we've scaled, I've been able to put in a team and systems to where the business can run when I'm not there. And so we're kind of at that point now. We've actually, beginning of this year, took on a partner, and he's leading all day-to-day operations kind of around the stores and everything. So it's all about a team, man. It's all about putting together a team, empowering that team to make decisions on a daily basis. And that really lets the owner, me and my partners, we can work on the business versus more in the business.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a fun ride, man.
Okay, yeah, man. So it's inspiring to see how the determination and focus led to your success. So your business, it grew impressively in just a few years, nearing $2 million top line company. Can you share some key strategies you employed to achieve this growth?
Yeah, I mean, plus or minus, that's about where the top line is. I think the thing there is many entrepreneurs. I don't want to say many, but a lot of people follow the new bright shiny toy, and that will cause you to go wider versus deeper. So you'll get involved in all kinds of different things, and I'm kind of talking out both sides of my mouth because I personally am invested in a lot of different things. Um, but when you think about your core business, um, our growth really centered around what do we want our platform to be. So um, when you want to grow within a specific segment, let's call it laundromats, regardless of type of equipment, in your store, many of the problems are common. So water valves, drain valves, stuff gets stuck, customer issues. And the more commonality that you can create, then it becomes pretty easy to resolve with a team or with some type of process or system. So the focus on the growth really was, hey, we bought one laundromat. Within 2 more months, we bought two more in the same area. And we said, so we're going to make that area our core and let's grow around it. So what do? You go around to those legacy owner operators and try and create relationships. And we kind of pitched ourselves as an easy acquirer because we didn't really know everything we were doing, but we kind of knew, it's easier to sell a laundromat to a laundromat guy than selling a laundromat to some private equity company that doesn't know how to run one. So it's easier for the owner to give it up kind of day one to somebody that can come in day one and start operating.
Okay, so do you look for the laundromats or car washes in specific areas? Do you buy anywhere? What does that look like?
Yeah, our strategy has been more geographic, and all within the core area around here. I live in Sioux Falls. All of our stores are actually centered around Sioux City, which is in the center between where and my our partners are kind of located. I think geographic's been it. Our focus has been on semi-passive type businesses. I would argue, a lot of people think laundromats are super passive. They're not, but they are semi-passive with, putting in, again, the appropriate team and systems. To be clear, we actually divested the one car wash we had in January. Certainly open to that opportunity again. It was just kind of one of those things where we had this one business over here, and I believe in focus and scale. We didn't see a growth pattern there. Also with car washes, there's a lot more players there in consolidators in that market than in laundromats today. So on a micro level, we're kind of playing that consolidator, laundromat consolidator. Again, it goes back to team empowerment systems, and then you've got to kind of put in some core principles around that to enable your growth. So, I mean, we've pretty much every store said it's not so hard to run a self-service laundromat business if you do three things. Okay, you keep it clean, you're efficient, so AKA you keep the machines working in a timely manner, and you're friendly, you're welcoming. So you do those three things, and that really boils down to team, right? So you have some maintenance there, you have some attending and cleaning there, and if you do those three things, I'm telling you, you'll be at 4, and you do them with some sense of urgency. You're sitting at a pretty good Google rating on your stores.
Yeah. Okay. And you say the laundromats aren't super passive. Even me, I thought they were very passive. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, it depends on your definition of passive. I mean, on Twitter and social media, you see a lot of guys going after storage units, and I think I would argue those are pretty passive. I've never owned one, so I can't totally go that way. But also to buy them, the pricing has gone through the roof, particularly with ZIRP and zero interest rates and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people have gotten into that business. And you can operate that more like a hobby. A laundromat, somebody's clothes get stuck, and we're all 24 hours everywhere. Somebody's clothes get stuck at 2 a.m. I mean, being responsive is important. So you got to set up processes and systems around that. But you're dealing with a lot more variables in a laundromat. So you've got water lines constantly running. When a water line breaks, it can ruin your store. So putting in things around that can detect those things. And we do deal with quite a bit of, we have to have a good relationship with the local police. We deal with some riffraff that happens. But you've got natural gas, you've got water lines running. The amount of maintenance, I believe, is understated. And it's funny. I get texts from some old colleagues and stuff, and particularly the last 3 years of, hey, Schemmel's out there retired, and I'm like, nah, not quite, guys. And because there is more work involved in maintaining your equipment and everything. Because if you don't do that, you can alienate your customers, but also run down a pretty sizable investment in a store pretty quick.
Yeah. I guess those are some of the things that the average person doesn't think that a laundromat has to deal with. So you guys have to deal with a lot more behind the scenes than what we see to the eye.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just all how you perceive it, but it's one of those things too. If you manage it well and you stay on top of it, and you've got backups in place to where folks can go on vacation that are helping you and working for you, you can operate it with a lot of flexibility. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's where that word semi-passive that we invented kind of comes up. So.
Okay, cool. So looking ahead, you mentioned 2025 plan to become a $5 million top line company. What steps are you taking to achieve this ambitious goal, and what challenges do you anticipate?
That's what we wrote on a piece of paper for our bank in 2020, and we got kind of laughed at. But yeah, we got a smile and a hey, quote unquote, that's pretty aggressive. But I think it's possible. There's product growth within your laundromats. There's things you can do. Leveraging the team with whether it be drop-off laundry or other services you can offer from a third-party basis. Video games, stuff like that obviously contribute to the business. But I look at inorganic growth as our primary driver, continuing to look for other semi-passive businesses within the region. So and kind of looking at areas that potentially we can create a route and replicate what we've done in our current footprint in other areas. So trying to grow smart. I mean, one thing you've got to be careful of, and I don't care if it's an entrepreneur or if it's a mature business, if you grow too fast and you grow faster than your team is ready for and able to keep up with, it's easy to trip and fall and fail.
Yeah.
So we're being methodical, but yeah, I think we learned a lot out of all of our locations in the first 3 years. But I look at the next, 2 to 3 years, we could probably double the business, hopefully. And that's really just looking at, Brandon, that's really looking at, things that are off market. I mean, that's just approaching people and saying, here's who we are. Here's some examples of what we've done. Because we've taken a couple stores, one was even closed, and rehabbed it and turned it into a great store. And, so using those examples, those real life examples, and having the patience for those little seeds that you plant to grow into good revenue and income streams, using those examples for legacy owner operators. Because I will tell you one thing we've realized, and I don't care if it's laundromats or car washes or whatever, there's a lot of pride in things that people have built. And so when it comes to maybe that owner operator looking to retire or getting close to retirement age, they're not just, they've probably made their money already and they're just fine. Yeah. You start talking about legacy, and you start talking about, I put 20 years of my life into this thing and I want to make sure it's going into good hands. So the stories that we've been able to put together so far, using those, telling those stories and using those as examples of why we would be good acquirers and why we should be the first phone call when they're ready, versus just, throwing it in a loop net or something. That's that's the primary tactic to becoming that first phone call is the primary tactic for what we think is a good opportunity for inorganic growth.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it sounds like you got an exciting road ahead of you, man.
Yeah. And I've been a little bit busier the last couple of months. I met a guy in 2017 here locally, and we've stayed connected. But he actually sold his consulting business last year. It's a great group of people, great business. So I've kind of jumped on and helping manage that and figuring out all the pieces between that and the acquirer right now. So, but that's been a fun little challenge. But I think when I think about the investing side and the core laundromat side and growing something that's semi-passive, that's the goal, right? You do the semi-passive things so you can do other things with your time.
Yeah.
And it's much easier if you can find the right partners, the right team that can support. And really, it's kind of a triple win situation. Everybody wins, if you run it correctly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a fun ride, man. I've got the partners I've got today. I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. And there's a heck of a lot of trust. I mean, it's still we have at 4 of the stores, we have the ability to take digital payments. And that's kind of, when I think back to my dad's business to today, that's been the biggest thing that's changed.
Yeah.
Some equipment technology, but really the payment technology on how folks can start machines versus just with quarters. We still take both. We take cash, we take card, and we're moving towards one digital solution that can control everything and process payments and stuff. I didn't really hit on that. Technology is also a huge opportunity in spaces like this, to where, right now on my phone at 2 of the stores, well, I guess 3, I can go power cycle, restart a machine. I can see what fault codes they're tripping. I can, look at today's revenue out of those stores. So when you start thinking about how you set up systems for cash collections and all that kind of stuff, the ability to audit today is light years ahead of, a couple of years or a couple decades ago. So,
yeah. Man, speaking of time, it sounds like you got a lot on your hands, man. It seems like you stay busy all the time, man.
Yeah.
Besides your successful ventures in laundromats and car washes, you also involved in day trading and a raw land partnership as well. How do these ventures complement your main focus, and how do you manage them all effectively?
Yeah, I mean, the core ventures obviously been the laundromat deal. My brother has been getting in and out of raw land for decades, so I kind of jumped on with one of my laundromat partners. We've kind of amped that up, and we don't. That's he's talking about passive. He kind of manages a lot of the ins and outs of that, but there's just those are long-term type holds, and we keep a couple of them listed. So there's less day-to-day there, and that's just more really, when you're, I got 3 kids, so when I'm up and they're asleep, I kind of do land searches and figure out, is there a good deal out there? And we have some strategies around how we buy. And then there's, day trading. It's just, I don't want to say it's a hobby, but it's kind of a hobby, but it's I've learned, it goes back to focus in business. If you, try and watch, 200 tickers out there, and try and manage that, it's nearly impossible unless you're an algorithm in a computer. I tend to watch 5 to 10 at a given time. They show up perfectly in your iPhone on one screen, and I usually leverage that. I spent in manufacturing. I was in a commodities manufacturer, so I generally watch how certain tickers play off of daily commodity pricing. So if commodities are going this way and the equity's going that way on no news, sometimes there's arbitrage there.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take much time. It's just more of something that I kind of got a feel for, and it just becomes part of your daily routine on when you wake up in the morning, what you look at and say, I'm going to do this today. And it's not really a time investment. It's a mental capacity investment. So.
Okay, cool. All right. So throughout your entrepreneurial journey as a whole, I'm sure that you can encounter many memorable experiences and turning points. Can you share one or two stories that have significantly impacted your entrepreneurial path?
I don't have one particular instance. I mean, I could give you a laundry list of stories, pun intended, of the phone call of when you're walking into church with your wife and kids and you get your car wash attendant calling and saying agua, 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 and it's a line busted every night, so you flooded something out. Those in the beginning, that you don't really know what's important and what's not, or what's an emergency and what's not. I think probably the biggest turning point for the business was when we started. I raised my hand with my partner, two partners at the time. Now we've got three because we brought on our GM, and I raised my hand and said, I'm gonna run this thing on my own, as it has been running for a year or two, and I'm gonna learn everything about it, and then we'll figure out how to really optimize. Whether that be, do we like the property or not? How do we optimize labor? Pricing, stuff like that. And it really took, and so I did all the money collections, and at the beginning I was like 5 times a week until we figured out how to get that down to 2. Money collections, all the maintenance, all the employees reported to me, so I got texts, calls. I mean, it wasn't like, and at the time I had a job. So it was a lot. And so it took a year, and I kind of stepped back one day and said, man, if I can just think about how do I create a systems to where I can have somebody do the collections, right, and hire that out. And so we did that, and it freed up my time. Okay, I'm spending a lot of time at Sam's on chips for the vending machine, which generates, there's profit there, but we didn't have any scale there. It was just kind of something as a convenience for the customers. So I sold all the vending machines to somebody and kept a royalty on the gross, and you can audit that, right? Yeah. And so I didn't have to go to Sam's anymore to shop for that stuff. Great. Anything, basically, if it didn't have to do with machines bolted to the ground that are doing laundry, or sometimes we do laundry for people as a drop-off service. That's what I wanted to focus on. And then it let me step back and realize, man, I'm underpriced at this particular store. Crazy. Like, I'm just, because I just never had time to step back and work on the business versus working in. And I think if you ask me about legacy owner operators of whether it be laundromats or these small businesses, they work 95% in the business because it's decent money. Versus on the business, and they step back, realize either they're underpriced, or they haven't changed their labor schedule in a long time, and maybe they're paying for a bunch of stuff they don't have to pay for, or we got 7 stores now, so it gives me a little bit of scale that I can go and purchase with, right? So you start thinking about how we order HVAC filters, and anything that we buy, we've been able to buy more wholesale versus retail. And we've been able to improve our margins pretty well with all those different steps. So that was to me like a year, and that was like a turning point when I started outsourcing some of the tasks that were taking the majority of my time as the owner, that I was able to reallocate that time to actually enhance and improve the business experience, the client experience, the business. And I just feel like we've taken off since then.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's definitely truly a inspiring moment of triumph. As we wrap up, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs who want to make a transition from a corporate career to start their own ventures?
The grass isn't always greener. I think the biggest thing you have to realize if you're going to exit a W-2 type job or try and do something on the side with it, is you're always going to underestimate the whatever you're budgeting for the time you're going to spend over there, triple it, because you've got to learn it. You're going to have, just more things that happen. And I'll just say, I wrote these, I don't know if you've seen the movie Air with the whole, the Nike thing where they go after Jordan back in the 80s.
No, I haven't seen that one yet.
It's a pretty good movie. I haven't seen a good business movie in a while. That was a good one. But you've got the Nike principles. Essentially, they're kind of famous. So you get inspired. So you write your own principles. And like one of them I wrote was like working quote unquote in the business is table stakes and pays the bills. Working on the business unlocks full potential. I was just talking about that. But I think for an aspiring entrepreneur, one of the things that just, I'll say kept me off the ledge is you have to realize bad days are going to happen. Nothing's going to run 100% according to plan. I don't care if that's an entrepreneur, a corporate job or whatever. Every plan is like a forecast. It's going to be wrong. You need to just try and get it as close to right as possible. But the principle I wrote for us was bad days happen. Embrace the suck and make it unsuck. Take something bad, turn lemons into lemonade. You've got to, find a way to make that negative situation and turn it to a positive. Because if you just focus, I don't care if you're buying a restaurant. I don't care if you're buying, multifamily and you're just, you're a landlord. The toilet's going to break. Okay. Figuring out a process and a method to manage it, whether that be yourself or have a backup in place, be able to take a vacation. I think that if you ask me, probably the one thing, any entrepreneur, when you buy something like that, have a backup plan in place. Still be able to disappear and the business should still be able to run. If you don't do that, you're going to go nuts.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Those are wise words, Jon. And for the people that want to find you, where can they find you on social media, or how can they get in contact with you?
Just LinkedIn's good. I feel like we got a pretty good network there. That's probably where I spend, I'd say majority of posts or whatever. I don't really mess around on Facebook. I kind of lurk on Twitter just to, read news and stuff. But I'd say, interacting, LinkedIn, and obviously it's under, you'd be able to find it just with my heading here, my name. So.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks so much for sharing your incredible journey with us, Jon. And it's definitely been a pleasure having you with us on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. Appreciate you reaching out, man.
All right, guys, you heard it here first. Thanks a lot for tuning in on this episode of the Investment Talk.
Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to show support, and stay tuned for the next episode of the Investment Talk.